Stand by. Shooter ready.
Stand by.
Hey, welcome back to another episode of the PRS podcast. Today we have with us a friend of mine from Iowa. This is Matt Sobotka. Hey, Matt.
Hey, Ken, how are you?
We're doing good. We're doing good. Glad to have you here, man. I'll say I first met Matt one of the 4 years that we ran the Barrel Maker. I think that was the first time that I got to meet you, and you and a bunch of folks came over from Iowa wearing Shields jerseys, and it was like, man, I've never seen these guys before, but we'd never given you a reason to come to Wisconsin to shoot before the Barrel Makers. But
Yep. There's a crew of us that came up to that match. That was the last one you had.
Was it the last one?
Yep, it was the last one. It was one of our favorites. I mean, it was a consensus driving home. Man, we got to come back here next year, and turns out
yeah,
it wasn't an option.
that was it. Well, there's some good news on that front. The Highlands, that property that we used to shoot on, new management there. I think for the 2026 PRS season, we're going to have some one days there. Feel out how things are going, and possibly a Barrel Maker back in 27. That's the first time I've said that publicly. Really good crew at the Highlands. And of course we have a really good crew here in Wisconsin that are hosting matches that would spearhead that. So
yeah, that's an awesome property. A lot of different things going on, different angles. It's
absolutely
definitely one of the biggest properties that I shot at.
Yeah. And then, I mean, amongst, it's crazy. It's not far from Milwaukee. It's amongst like homes. It's in the country. Like you wouldn't, it's sort of unassuming or unsuspecting, I guess.
Yeah.
So Matt, let's go beyond that. Let's do an introduction with you. Give us some background, who you are, what do you do, all of that fun stuff.
Sure. I'm obviously Matt Sobotka from small town Iowa, diagonal town of 350 people. So we're busting metropolis here. Kind of got into shooting, I don't know, probably 4 years ago, maybe 5. Some one days in our border war stuff, and before we really get into the shooting stuff, I think professionally, I guess what I do for work, I'm an engineer by trade. I run a lab, I guess. It's a testing facility where we test actually EV components. So batteries, inverters, motors, really EV drivetrain, EV powertrain components we test for some of the biggest automakers in the U.S., some of the biggest automakers in the world, from Asia.
You've been probably really busy as of recently, right? I mean, business has got to be good, I would assume.
It's a great time to be testing that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Trump's kind of turning the knob back to IC engine, which is really what our business started at, is internal combustion engine testing, and hybrids are the new push, and coincidentally a hybrid's got a battery and an engine, so that's good for business.
There you go.
So and a lot of that problem solving, a lot of it's coming up with methods to perform tests, and there's a lot of that stuff that's a direct correlation, believe it or not, to shooting and match directing. So you come up with a stage design, or you're trying to get through load development or set up a new rifle. It's all there's some engineering involved in that, and some problem solving, and it's one of the components to success in the sport. Got to be prepared.
You're probably like me and other engineers too. You have spreadsheets for various things within the sport, right? Load development, muzzle velocities and SDs and all of that in there, right?
Yeah, the first year of shooting, there wasn't a shot I took outside of a match that wasn't over a chronograph on a piece of paper that wasn't measured. It didn't matter if it was a seating depth or shooting the same ammo I did at the match. I wanted to see what my best 5-shot was, 4-shot, 3-shot.
Yeah.
And track that and really see that variance over time, and what was consistent. And as time goes on, you lose some of that edge a little bit with all the reloading and shooting, but it's still there. You hold on to what matters and keep that rolling.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you figure out too. And I don't know, what cartridge did you start with? did you start shooting with?
The first PRS match I shot was with Ruger RPR that a bunch of my friends and family got me for a wedding present. It was a 6 Creedmoor.
Cool.
And
6 Creed. So you actually started 6mm.
Yep, started 6mm codes. I had some good mentors getting in that already had that part figured out. They went down the hard road first a couple of years before I, was shooting again and got off on the right foot and then built a PR shortly after that. And from there it's all downhill.
It's way downhill, and it gets easier too. Shooting sportsman division recently. I have gone back to reloading for 6.5 Creedmoor, and like, holy cow! Like you got to actually try to make this. Like you got to put some effort into making good loads again. And then once you kind of find it, it's like, oh, okay, I kind of know what my tolerance is.
Yeah, actually, that RPR right there, that was the original.
Still have it.
Yeah, I love it. Wedding gift. Can't ever get rid of it.
Yeah, that's a fact.
Different barrel. We went through a couple barrels on it. Got the good out of it, and now some new shooters. I got some buddies that'll shoot it one days, just for fun, and they don't.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Guns. They don't know any better, so.
It's not a bad rifle. I mean, I shot an RPR for a year and a half, 2 years, and I think getting your feet wet, like it's a perfect out of the box rifle, right? I mean, with a couple small tweaks, you can get it to run pretty good. I mean, look at Doug Koenig. I mean, he's had
great success.
His is a little special RPR, right? I mean, it's going to be a Ruger custom shop RPR, still a production rifle, but I mean, he is a phenomenal shooter. He puts a lot of rounds down range every year.
Yeah, has been for a long time.
Yeah, long time. Yeah. Yeah. So, man, it kind of blows my mind. You've only been shooting for 4 years now?
I think my first Pro Series match would have been at the end of 2021. It was Tom Jacobs' last match at Vapor Trail. Was my first one, and it was first 2-day match, and that it started off on a high note. I ended up in a 3-way tie for 5th with Greg Harris, great shooter, doesn't get out as much anymore, and another guy anyways lost the tiebreaker. He ended up in 6th place, but it took 2 or 3 years, 4 years after that to podium again.
Get back.
So started off with a lot of promise, and then I don't know, reality hit. I don't know what happened. Just always found a way to slide down the leaderboard.
Yep. Yeah, you get bet by it, right? And then I mean, you've had a Pro Series win, right?
Yeah.
It was Hoppy's Hustle.
Yep.
At the Gap match or Gap range in Kansas City. Yeah.
Yeah. So that was the next time I made the podium. Like I said, 4.
So you went from 6th to 1st.
Yep.
That's pretty good.
So hopefully we get a little bit more of that, going forward. But it's there's a lot of good shooters out there from a lot of different places, and that's pretty amazing.
Yeah, it's getting tougher and tougher and tougher, right? We'll get on to that too here in a second. There's a reason that we'll reveal to the listeners. There's a big reason why we have Matt here, but a little bit more history here. So then, this year in March was your 2nd annual, right? Hosting your match. Let's talk about that, title sponsor, all of that stuff.
Yeah. So our match in Southern Iowa, Ben Graham and I put that match on. We have for 2 years at the 2-day runs at a property that we only utilize for the 2-day match. We have some other regional matches. We did the Midwest Championship last year. Those are all at kind of different ranges. We like to rotate around. We've got a good area to hold matches and know a lot of the locals that are willing to, support us. So. But our match, our 2-day, the Southern Iowa Showdown, presented by Shields, it's been this last match was really great. I think we made a lot of changes from 24 to 25. We got a lot of feedback from the shooters after the 24 season, after the 24 match, I guess. Precision Rifle Voice, it was a huge tool for us to actually listen to the masses rather than, your friends or the people or the people that are comfortable talking to you.
Right.
And we had I think a phenomenal match this year. Had a ton of great feedback. It's a field style match, so we run 20 stages. we shoot 1 through 20 consecutively, both days. We can hold, as many shooters as we could probably, get attracted to the area.
How many acres do you get to hold on that? You're holding a match on?
So the property itself is probably, I don't know, 400, 500, 600 acres, and we utilize
Yeah.
kind of probably 50 or 60 of it.
Okay.
Not a lot of it. It's actually large enough, and we could put on an ELR match, and that's another topic. But there's definitely a way to do it. Josh Edged and I've kind of been scheming on that some. But anyways, back to our match. We had about 120 shooters. It's all natural terrain. It's mostly man-made props, though. Most of the background you get, is something you'd encounter in a hunt or in a field setting. It makes it much more tough or much more difficult. We've got plenty of angle change and a good mix of short range, long range. Really put a lot of effort into laying out that course of fire, in a way the match flows: positional prone, long range, positional prone, long range, so on and so forth. Try to balance it. For the most part, it works out. It works out pretty well. We've got a couple things, I guess, that we're working on for 26 that'll, I think, balance the hill, we call it, and then the north side, and hopefully make that as as competitive as possible end to end.
Yep. So you had, I'm just looking at the website right now, you had 115 your first year, which I would call that especially for March, Iowa. I mean, a lot of factors there, right? And I think in 24 you had some crazy weather last year too, didn't you?
Yeah, we had a lot of wind, and so Ben and I like to shoot. We shoot pretty, differently. We're pretty complimenting matchmakers in the sense that I like to, plan, stay at the high level a little bit more, make sure, we have the price table. We've got what we need done for the PRS. We've got those sort of things. And Ben's
admin, yeah. He's
notoriously a last minute guy, but he's very effective when it comes down to the wire. Need something, he's gonna have a solution for it pretty quick. So
nice.
You got a quick game time problem solver and kind of a planner mixed together, and we can do it.
Perfect.
But that match last year, we had a lot of medium-sized targets. I would say they weren't small. There were some small ones, but they're medium-sized. A lot of movement and quick times, because we like to, we like to flow. We like to move fast. We like quick matches. We put a lot of those things into it, and it really separated, the men from the boys. And
I'm looking at it right now. Lane Shelley was first. Keith Baker was second. Lane had 173 to Keith Baker's 162. I mean, he won by 11 impacts, and then 10th place had 148.
Lane, not many people know about that, but that was easily the best 2 days of shooting I'd ever seen anyone come close to doing. And in those conditions, with there's stages out there with different wind lanes, wind breaks through ditches, across valleys, and you would hold 3 different wind calls on a single troop line that went out in one direction, just because the way the terrain blew. And Lane would go out there and he would clean those stages, and he kind of came off and said, well, I wasn't afraid to make a wind call,
No joke. No joke.
It was
for Dale Rhodes, 10th place, and Lane had 25 impacts on him.
That was
that's crazy.
That creates a scoring gap, and not a lot of people use the scores from a match like that. And the guys that place well, and Dale, great example. Yeah. He was complimentary, at least to us, after the match and throughout the season when you ran into him. And he's
an awesome character.
The good shooters enjoyed that match. The top 15, the top 10 shooters that place there really enjoyed it. Well, they place well, but they didn't get a ton of points, as you see, because of
No.
him, but that was
I
a
mean,
key takeaway to me. Was
yeah. Well, I mean, Keith Baker, second place, or 93.642 points, and Keith had a good year last year too, and he probably had high expectations of, going out to Iowa. It's a first year match. There's probably going to be some of that first year match director isms, right? I'm probably the most guilty of it, doing blind stages and random stuff because it's the match director trying to challenge the shooters. So he probably was thinking, actually, Keith Baker won our first match, by the way. It came down to kind of a technicality at the end, but we threw out the spinner stage, which was not smart to run anyway. But I'm sure that's what he was thinking. Like, yeah, I'm going to go out there and do that. And then he gets 93.6 points.
yeah,
Ouch.
he got the trophy and kind of left in
Yeah.
mediocre spirits, I guess. But
Right.
it wouldn't have been that way if he takes Lane's outlier score out of it. It tightens up down there.
Yeah.
And it was 173. For a match winner was much lower than what we targeted. And if he doesn't pull off that phenomenal weekend, then 160 low 160s wins, and that's a tough match.
Right. That's a tough match.
So we had a lot.
This year, Ted Clark gets his first win. He had 190 impacts. I'm assuming out of 200.
Yep, we run 10 rounds every stage. It try to balance that aspect to 200 rounds.
I like that. Yep. In fact, we had a meeting last night, and this is myself and Steiner, and then it was all of the Canadian match directors, including Carly and Van, who were a match director last year, but all the rest of them are new this year. And we were just talking through a lot of fine points of, what it's your first year hosting a match. Don't try to overdo it, right? And here's a lot of things. If you just get these things right, especially for your first match, like, it'll be a good match. You don't have to hit home runs. You just need a lot of singles, right? And one of them being like, and I like this, if you run all 10 round stages. Then you don't, like, it does a couple things, right? At the end of the day on Saturday, if everybody shot 10 round stages, you know exactly where you stand, right? You don't have this, but you shot the 3 12-rounders today, and I shot 1 12-rounder and an 8-rounder, and all the rest were 10s, and it's like, how many points do I where do I actually stand? How many am I down? And you don't have to do that kind of math. And you also don't have that disparity of like, well, you got to shoot all the 12-round stages when there was really favorable weather conditions to shoot, right? And then I shot all the 12-round stages the next day when the weather conditions were unfavorable for whatever reason, right? So like, for any match director out there, whether it be Rimfire, Regional Center Fire, or Pro Series, 10 rounds across the board is
great
fair.
Number. It's
yes,
a great number. And
yeah, and on top of that, I mean, there are some states where you can't have more than a 10-round mag. So like it's fair for a lot of reasons, California, Illinois, New York, whatever.
Yep.
I'm guessing. I don't know the laws in all the states, but right.
Well, a lot of the experiences you get shooting matches, you run into those things too over time. Like the 12-round thing, I shot a match a couple years ago in Indiana, right when those guys switched from the kind of the airport runway, the bomber to the new property, and didn't have as many berms up in that place the first year. Well,
Beanfield.
Yep.
Flat Beanfield.
Had a great day one and shot a great match really, but I caught a 12-round stage first stage of the day, day two, and a bunch of prairie dogs that were skylined into a wooded area, and the width of the prairie dog was just about the same as the width of all the tree trunks in the background. They shot up so they were black, and then you had the dark background, and about everybody in our squad went out there and timed out, and was
trying to find them on all that
really cleanable stage, and shoot, it was 12 rounds and probably got 6 or 7 points, and that was the difference between probably top 5.
But in different lighting conditions, right? it could drastically change that. So that, I mean, that could be the difference between shooting first thing in the morning or late afternoon where all the targets seem to be highlighted, you know?
Yeah, the
Yeah.
easy thing to do, just see better, and then you don't have that problem. But the point
Yeah.
was, if it's a 10-round stage, it's a little bit less,
Right.
impactful to
Painful.
your total match, and it's just balance.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Good balance.
And the other,
So
go ahead.
no. Continue.
Well, the other thing with our match, we really try to do with the course of fire is, and it's great. I think it's great advice for the Canadian crew is you don't try to design the stages in a way that it avoids the potential for conflict. So
Yeah.
stages like KY, hit to advance,
Yeah. Hit to move on. Yeah. Yep.
those are tough. You get into the middle of the stage, shooter thinks they hit it. One spotter says yes, the other says no. What do you do?
You're burning time now. Yeah.
And
Arguing.
now you can't really comment to the shooter. You can't really help them out much to get them going. So an
Right.
easy thing to avoid that sort of situation is don't put a hit to move on. So, there's other stages like that those are fun to do, but
They are.
on a pro series, a pro level match, you're just better off keeping the course of fire more straightforward.
Simple.
Yep.
Yep. The last hit to move on stage that I ever ran was it was a barrel maker stage. It was out of the helicopter. We had a motion sensor. As soon as the shooter went into the helicopter, it started playing Fortunate Son at a really high volume. I mean, you couldn't hear anything, and it was hit to move on. That was a problem, So if you're not clearly seeing your impacts, or if you have any sort of question, probably 15% of the folks had issues with that, which is huge. I mean, we got 140 people at your match, and 15% is 20 shooters that have a problem with it, and they come off and are like, "That's the dumbest stage I've ever shot." I'm like, I thought of us being really clever with the music and stuff, and like that would have been awesome if it just wasn't hit to move on.
Yeah.
2 at each and get out of there.
One of those stages that sounds great on paper or sounds great and
we're still talking about it.
doesn't run as well as it sounds.
No. But you're right. Straightforward. You almost, I don't want to say water it down, but the more simple you make a match, especially your first one, like the greater everybody leaves with a much warmer feeling, like, that was a pretty good match, And then, in my experience anyway, the more Pro Series matches I got out and shot, then I started finding things. I'm like, oh, I really like that idea. Like that one stage, let's incorporate that, or I could use that on this part of my property, right? And then, I mean, if you get out and you do more and you get some more experience, like you end up developing your match to be your style of shooting and all the stuff that you really enjoyed from other people's matches,
And we're still doing that. I mean,
yeah.
You go to a lot of matches too that's kind of the same thing year after year. Well, at our place, we've got to set the match up the week before
and tear it down.
Yep, and tear it down, 2 weeks after, and it's time to play and it's time to perform. So that's done. But doing that allows or kind of forces us, I guess, to change up more, and then we bring back stages that we enjoyed shooting, mix those in with some that maybe were more difficult to shoot or harder than we thought, or the feedback wasn't as great. And you're putting bad ones, but put new ones in and see if it goes in the right direction. And it's helpful. We had a qualifier this year. Probably be a few years before we get it up there.
Well, let's talk about that. And I don't think this is necessarily really public knowledge. It is amongst the match director committee. So the match director committee is all the Pro Series MDs. And there's regional directors in there as well. But when we go to set the Pro Series schedule every year, we start with, hey, does your date from last year still work? Now, there's some floating holidays that move around like Easter, maybe a Mother's Day or something like that, it ends up falling on somebody's weekend. We got to move them off. And then that kind of screws up everything around that part of the schedule, which this year was Easter. Like that's why we had 2 back-to-back weekends that had 3 matches each.
Yep.
Each weekend. But one of the things we do is we look at in each sort of region, we have at least one, maybe two qualifiers that sort of rotate. So the Southern Iowa match presented by Shields, right, is there with THS, Chris Offer's match, right? I think it's also there technically with George's match at the Gap Range, but he only has about 85 shooters, 90 shooters anyway. So I don't think we're ever going to put a qualifier on that because it's so limited.
He said that too. Yeah.
Yeah. And then the other match, which is new this year, is Derek Davidson's Bullet Central Northern Lights. Northern Lights presented by Bullet Central, I think is what we're calling it. Yep. So basically it's those upper Midwest matches will share a qualifier, right? And then hopefully, as time goes on, the population in the upper Midwest grows. We get maybe a couple more matches, like a barrel maker that comes in, more shooters, etc. And then we can put two qualifiers in that get shared, right? But right now, last year, out of those, well, I guess it was 3-4 matches, it was THS got the qualifier in South Dakota. This year it was Shields. Next year, pending a good match by Derek Davidson in North Dakota. Yeah, which I think he's going to do a fine job. You can kind of tell when, a shooter becomes an MD and it has, like when you talk to somebody, it's like, all right, this guy's pretty down to earth and he's got pretty straightforward.
He's got a pretty unique style of marketing, I think, that's clicking with a lot of people.
Yeah. Great. Yeah, it's funny. But they're sold out. So, for a first year match, that's pretty cool, especially for North Dakota. It's awesome to see.
It is. There's actually, so we look at population, where are the shooters coming from, not only for 2 days, but we look at it for, the regional series, and they're growing up there. Those North Dakotans, it's cold, but they shoot guns. So
yeah, well, when it's warm, man, we're shooting. Yeah, Minnesota too. Minnesota's come on pretty strong too. They're not. Derek's not that far from Minnesota. He actually is not far from Canada either. I think he's a stone's throw from Canada, I think. So he's going to get some Canadian shooters come down too.
Yeah, well, I just was impressed with how many that came from, our regional match. There's a ton of North Dakota shooters that came all the way down to Iowa. We were centrally located in there, and it made a lot of sense. We sold that out too, but it's great to see that. And the South Dakota's got some really good shooters, but not as many, participating in the PRS. And if that knob could get turned a little bit,
right,
you're talking about a huge, almost another region.
Seriously. Yeah, I've had that conversation a few times with Chris Opfer. Like, man, you have some really good shooters here, but they don't want to shoot they don't want to shoot a lot of barricade stuff. They don't want, and that's fine. It's a different style. But I wouldn't go against those guys if it was an all prone match or troop lines or something like that. I mean, they're solid shooters in South Dakota and North Dakota.
Yeah, I'm rooting for Chris up there. He's got his work cut out for him and puts on a great match. We'll be up there again in July, and hopefully we have a nice calm day like we had Saturday. Not last year. I don't think we were. But
that's a once in a decade kind of calm day, right?
Yeah.
No wind in South Dakota.
Yeah, scores were high, and he was not liking it, but I don't think the shooters mind that too much.
So all right, now we're talking Chris Offer here, and I know he gets a lot of his influence from Oklahoma shooting, and he likes that kind of style shooting, and incorporates a lot of that into the THS match that he hosts. And I've shot Oklahoma a decent amount, and by Oklahoma I mean probably more clay Blackadder, where it's 50% prone, 50% barricade. Exactly. It's really fair, challenging target size. It's not. I'm not saying difficult, and I'm not saying they're gimmies. Like, they're challenging.
It's consistent sizes.
Consistent for sure, right? And that's. I think you get a lot of that for your match too, right? Like that's the mentality you go into it.
We got a spreadsheet, and we try to get them as standard as possible. Our prone stages, are consistent. Our position are consistent. And Clay does that well. Chris probably does that better than anyone when it comes to the match as a whole. I mean, he puts a lot of effort into running it as fair as possible. You're skipping stages. Shoot the whole course both days. Rotate the shooting order. Top to bottom, bottom to top.
Yeah, shake it all up.
I kind of shy away from that just because everybody gets in a rhythm, and they know what they're doing. They know who they're after.
That's true.
Keeps the match going, but it's undeniably not as fair as how Chris does it. So
right, and for anybody that wants to shoot South Dakota, like it's July, I think is his match, mid-July.
Yeah,
it's just like shooting at Clay's or Oklahoma, but instead of all the dust, it's like everything is lush green. Right. And it's usually pretty beautiful weather. I mean, high 80s, sunny, usually windy, right? I mean, you have, but it should be 10 to 20 every day. But last year you had 0 to 5.
Yeah,
crazy.
Not much. But.
Yeah. So, all right. So we've talked about your matches both years. We've talked about a couple other matches in reference and whatnot. Let's get to the meat and potatoes here. So, This actually, it was right after the finale last year. I had started conversations with Francis Cologne, who's a friend of mine as well from Michigan. Everybody knows Francis, or should. Really analytical kind of individual, data driven, and somebody that I trusted. That I started with a conversation saying like, "Hey, I've received a lot of feedback on possible ways to change how we score, how shooters earn points from matches, right? And it seems like there are some solutions out there that we could implement some revisions to how we earn points to help out matches, say like the 2024 Southern Iowa Shields match, right, where you have Lane Shelley win by double-digit points, and Keith Baker goes out there and earns 93 points, but he had a great weekend. So I started with Francis and said, "Hey, can you pull together a committee of folks that are reasonable, technically minded competitors that understand this issue and care about the shooting sport and want to help make it better." So he pulled together a committee and then took a job with MDT. So like the conversations with Francis regarding the scoring committee, it fell off. And I get it. Like he is frantically busy and he's very motivated, career driven, et cetera. So I had a conversation again with him after not talking for probably 5 or 6 weeks. I'm like, "Hey, I think you're probably a little too busy for this." And he acknowledged, and said, "Yeah, there's no way I can give this the attention it deserves." And I go, "Great. I have a really close backup of Matt Sobotka that is somebody I trust, somebody who's very analytical." I mean, we talked about your career and so the type of things you do for work and the data analysis that you do there. And it's like, man, this, and you and I have had these conversations, right? Like I think at the finale too, we're on a tailgate looking at a spreadsheet of, most of the 2024 season. And hey, if we adjust how folks earn points this way, that way, here's what happens to the top guys. Here's what happens to the mid-pack shooter. Here's what happens to the guys at the bottom. Like, trying to find a solution. We're doing this on tailgate in Idaho, right?
Yeah.
So
better place.
Yeah, exactly. So, all that being said, Matt, let's talk scoring committee. Let's hopefully you have a list of who's on the committee or can name everybody.
We can.
Let's talk about some of the things that we're looking at. We're looking at changing or considering and all of that.
Yeah, so start with how it probably started for me is kind of a little bit funny. I had a passion for the finale. I'm not gonna go get a bullet, certainly not golden bullet. At that point in the career, it was about making the finale, and I had a lot of shooters in this area, a lot of buddies, people I shoot against I thought were really good, that didn't necessarily get as many points or finish as high in the season rank or get to the finale that should have. And you look at some other people and they maybe have more points than you think they should have based off of how you shoot against them head to head. Well, so I started putting together some spreadsheets. Be honest, and happened to win that 2-day match in Kansas City, and then that week, you call the match winners. I had no idea that you got a call a Wednesday. I think it was like a Wednesday at 4:00, and Ken calls. Okay, let's see what he wants. And I remember the conversation kind of it was real slow to start. I'm like, what do you want? What do you Ken? And then I finally piece it together that this is the process. At the end of that call, brought up this scoring thing, and and we brainstormed a little bit and put together some more information spreadsheets, and then really the first we got was the finale. So, and then fast forward, Francis can't do it. Matt, you're in. So I inherit kind of what Francis had pulled together. Off the start, he had a pretty large group of people that I felt was too large. You get too many people in a room, and it's tough to get anything done. You just talk and talk and talk, and you can't reach any sort of agreement or compromise, and it's not effective. So just from an engineering background and design teams, development teams, it's 5, 6, 7 people is a good number for that sort of a team, and kind of applied that to this group, and cut a few people out, but kept some good ones. So the group of us doing it, Sheldon Nalos, from out west, phenomenal guy, very analytical.
Very analytical.
Probably has the most data put together of anyone. I'm super impressed with Sheldon, the way that he speaks. His vocabulary is very spot on in the words that he uses to describe trends and statistics. Really.
And for everybody that may or may not know, Sheldon is the one that puts together the spreadsheets at the end of the year that put all the matches against each other, and all the variables that point out like this match was the difficulties of each of the matches, right? And then sort of the strength of each shooter based on those things too, right? So you end up with a end of year top 300, I think he goes.
It may be not even.
Yeah, 300-400 shooters in the Pro Series based on what matches they shot, how well they did there, and basically it's a depth chart or strength chart, that type of thing.
Pretty comprehensive data set, and
really
only complaint was the match that I won was like in the bottom 5 or 10 in terms of difficulty, and I felt like it was way tougher than that. So we got to rig those numbers around and make my strength schedule go up or whatever metrics he's got played into that. But anyways, he's a key guy in the group. Rusty Ulmer, you got the wisdom with the age there, and he's in some different groups, and he kind of level sets everyone. Chris Katalik, another, he's another top shooter that's going to bring in that perspective. Ken Sanowski is kind of fits in that group, and when building it, we tried to make get some top shooters, get some middle guys, and not just load it up with too many like-minded people.
Right.
And otherwise, you may get changes that really tailor to the top shooter group.
Right. That's not me, so I'm not gonna let everything be tailored to that. Right. I'm that guy that's right at the cut line every year for making the finale.
Joe Thielen and Miles Nabel from the Hornady team, 2 engineers there. Joe in the management role has got a ton of wisdom, experience, and kind of asks the right questions. That I think that's really the core group that we have, and then Matt Steiner and yourself for
directors,
optional attendees. Matt's been there every meeting so far, and that way we can get some of that PRS sort of feedback and knowledge. What are people talking about, to the organization?
What do we get emails on?
And some of that
Yeah.
historic, what's been tried, what's been talked about in other committees, and don't repeat a mistake
Yeah.
that's been made. So that group is I think a great group. We've had some pretty productive.
I'm pretty proud of who's on there, and it covers, East Coast to West Coast, pretty much north and south. And, it has guys from a lot of different backgrounds that would have different reasons for wanting to change scoring too. Right.
It's key.
So I think it's a really healthy group. Right. And then yourself, obviously being really central Iowa,
Yep. So there's some match directors in there. There's some mid-pack shooters in there. There's some top-level shooters, East Coast, West Coast, like you said. It's a diverse group that touches a lot of people. It's able to get a lot of feedback, and also, well networked with previous ideas.
Yep. So I'm sort of rhetorically asking these questions, right? Because I'm pretty aware of the situation. But let's talk about what are some of the goals of developing the scoring system, or so whatever the result is we get from this committee, and the data, and we go through it and say, all right, here's a couple options. We're going to take that to the match director committee, basically present it, explain it, and then the match director committee votes. Like, do we go to option A? Do we go to option B, option C, or leave it as is, right? But what are some of the goals of this, and sort of some of the boundaries that we're considering?
Yeah, the first step in a group like this is define, your purpose. What are you trying to do? What's the problem statement? Because depending on what that is, it could be very easy to solve. It could be very complicated. If the goal, one of the objectives is to create some separation amongst the top shooters. Well, if that's your only objective,
we could do that.
That's easy.
We do that easily.
Yeah.
But
when we put this, this objective set, this criteria, the considerations together, it kind of broke it into three groups: the top level shooter, the mid pack, and the new shooter, and really try to come up with a solution that doesn't negatively impact any of those groups.
Now it's a challenge,
and now it's
right, because if it was just to separate the guys at the top, which I'll be honest, a lot of the feedback that I received in 2024 was we had like 6 guys going to the finale with 300 points, right? And we had folks that pointed at that and said, scoring system's broken. Like, whoa, no, we just have, that could mean we just have shooters that are really good that didn't all happen to shoot against each other and, dominated their region. Right? If you have that many guys that just dominate their area, they're all going to earn 300 points, right? Yep. It could mean that. It could mean the scoring system's broken, but if that's the only thing we're looking at changing, that would be easy. But one of the things that I emphasized, and I'm going to keep emphasizing this, is like from that below that top shooter all the way down to that brand new shooter that just made the finale, like that is the PRS, like that call it mid pack and newest shooter. Like there are way more of us out there that make up this community than the very top level guys. So we can't implement something that's going to, may solve that issue that we've identified of having a stacked leaderboard going into the finale if it's going to sacrifice everybody behind them. Right.
Right. And it's that group at the top tends to be the most, talk the loudest. It's the one you hear the most about, and it's kind of a double-edged sword. One is they make up such a small portion of the PRS from a business or perspective.
Community.
They don't
right.
Matter as much as they may like, but from the other side of it, they're the pinnacle of the sport. So they're the people that are that are using the new equipment. They're marketing it. They're representing the companies.
They're very important to our sponsors, and partners of the PRS, and those folks, those are what financially keep this organization alive. Right. And I don't want to turn my back on them either. So
right. You can't.
Now it's getting a little more difficult to solve, right, Matt?
Right. And you can't turn it back. You have to solve that problem. That is actually probably the easiest of them to solve, because for the mid-pack person, the objective there and we define the mid pack as the guy that ends up 100 to maybe 300th on the season, the guy that's getting 15th to maybe 50th at the match, those sort of bounds. And we don't want we don't want the wrong group. We want really the right group of people, the right shooters there to be first round invites to the finale. So the mid pack group, we want the right people in the top 200.
Right.
And depending on where you reside in the U.S., what matches you have access to.
The old East Coast, West Coast argument, right?
Yep. There's a really nice belt. Well,
there was, so last year's a great example, right? Like if you lived in Nick Godarzi's neighborhood, I'm sorry, he's not letting you earn points this year, right? So you literally could have accidentally shot all the same ones that Nick did and not make the finale, even though you shot pretty good.
Yep.
Right. Versus, if you live in Tennessee, you shoot K&M, Twisted Barrel, Magnolia Meltdown, which tend to have a lot more stacked leaderboard, right? You don't have a huge gap necessarily. Sometimes you do. Sometimes there's just a crazy weekend. Somebody wins by a dozen, right? But you could, that guy finishes, 30th in each one of those matches, but earns 88 or 90 points.
More than
right, where the guy that, what's that?
More than that.
Could be more than that, right? Whereas the guy that shot with Nick Godarzi all last year, he finishes 11th and he earns 75 points.
The guy that shoots the Southern Iowa Showdown gets second, gets 93, right?
Right.
And he's not using that score. So
no.
How do you fix that is kind of another problem, and how do you balance matches? So you don't want to hurt any of the three core groups, and you don't. You want to maybe more normalize match score across the board, and you don't want to high scoring matches. That belt that runs from Texas through Arkansas, Tennessee over to Georgia. Those matches are highly attended, and they're for building the sport. They're great. Big shooter population.
Yep, huge communities there.
Can't hurt their attendance. You want to be able to keep that high. But
from a business perspective, nobody. I don't want to say nobody. All right, Prentice Wink historically is known for having really large attendance matches where a lot of people earn a lot of points.
Yep.
His matches sell out at 200 plus. Like the only one beating that is K&M. For a regular season match. And, is Prentice doing it wrong? I would argue he's doing everything right. He's got a huge community he's done there, right?
Yep.
So, I can't punish him with this new scoring system either, right? Like people still want to go there and have a great experience, but they still should go to, I hate to say Nut Crusher because you know what you're getting when you go to Nut Crusher, but like, say KRG Windbreaker, right? Where that's a really cool experience place to shoot up in Washington. But man, the winner's going to probably gap the field, Yeah,
it's going to be more common to have a shooter run away with it if it's a hard match, if it's a challenging match, and how do you make a change to the scoring system that maybe drives that attendance up? Because there's people that won't go shoot them because they're hard.
Right.
As with our 24 match, it was it kind of felt like it was do or die for 25. If we had another tough year, then now we got a reputation. Right. And
so one of the things we're talking about here, you could address this, like if the scoring system allowed, like, you end up shooting a tough match, huge gap in points from top to bottom or top to 10th or whatever it is, like maybe you earn a little bit more points there, right? Like maybe it isn't, hey, sorry, Keith Baker, you went to Iowa, took second place, 93 points. Maybe you now earn 98 for that or something, right? That's what we're talking about.
That's what you're trying to get to, and then you start looking at different systems. We've really considered 9 different unique methods so far. There's a 10th one. Miles is putting together. He didn't get a share at last meeting, but it's a unique it's another unique way to, I think, accomplish what we're trying to, but we need to make sure there's not holes in it, depending on, uh, maybe it's a low attended match with maybe some really good shooters and maybe one or two really good shooters, and then does the scoring system really separate or amplify?
Right.
You got to vet through that. So, that's one of the things that as the committee chair, that we ask the group is, if we have a method to seriously evaluate, it's going to have a model to go with it. We need to be able to demonstrate, to each other, because everybody, you talk about, bringing in placement scoring, hybrid scoring systems, and everybody's got preconceived notions of what those mean.
Yeah, and we can talk about a couple of these, but I think that's the one that always gets brought up, right? Because I think the NRL Race Gun Series, right? That's how they did it. So you earned half of your points based on your impacts, and the other half of your points are based on what place you took, right?
Yep.
So if in that scenario with Keith Baker, we keep going back to 2024 Shields match, like he would have been closer to 98 points or 97 points, because he, earning second place earns you a large margin of your total points.
Right. So you start to look at how many, what percentage of the shooters are hitting 90% and coming away with 90 points, not hitting 90% of the target. Coming away with 90. That 90 number is significant when it comes to who's qualifying for the finale.
Right. And it's been 85 to 90 points is about what it takes now for 3 matches.
Yep. And that continues to go up, and that continues to go up. Well, you also see in a match director trend where matches are getting easier. There's more people doing that than there is people staying consistently, maybe difficult or consistently moderate. So now again, where you're in an area where you have access to more matches, you've got an advantage on the season. So, placement, the NRL system, bringing in placement is a huge, it's a huge way to really normalize the playing field. If you have 240 people that shoot the match and it's high scoring match, that placement's going to knock that placement component of your score, knocks you down further, down the list you are. Well, those are the guys that are the mid-pack guys that you're trying to really weigh against the others who aren't at that match, who get that first round invite to the finale. So pretty soon you start to see trends and evaluate things differently, and you see what works. So another piece that we look at. So we look at what does it take is what I kind of titled the slide. It's what does it take to get 10th place on the season, 25th, 50th, 100th, 200th. What season score do you need to have to be in squad 1? That's the 10th, 10th, 12th place, whatever. What season score do you need to have to be in the top 25? Realistically, those are the people that shot at the bullet. And then you go down to 100. That's a nice benchmark. And then the 200 mark, that's kind of your marker who's getting the invites. So you look at the scoring systems, the changes in them, and how does it affect that number. And you see the placement component in the hybrid system really it does separate the top just a little bit.
Very minor, honestly.
Very minor.
Yeah.
But it's geared towards rewarding people that consistently shoot well all year long. So if you consistently go to matches and place high and win or hit a lot of targets, you end up in the top, 5 or 10 shooters, and you get the separation. It's hard to separate the top without separating the bottom. So when you look at what it takes to get 200, and you look at a hybrid scoring system, the guy that get 200th place in the year is probably going to have maybe 10 to 15 points. I could look at the numbers if we wanted, but they're going to have 10 to 15 less points than they had the year before, or in the same year with the different scoring system.
Right.
You start to ask, are people going to be demoralized by that? And I think
does that negatively affect them, and are they going to keep shooting?
Right.
Yeah.
And I think the answer to that's no, because everybody that they're ranked against or closely to is still
Hmm.
right there beside them. The names shift around.
Hmm.
So when we look at those systems, and we also take a look at who the big movers are,
Yeah.
who
Yeah.
gains.
Who moved the most?
Yep.
Yeah.
And that's where, again, you see people that have those access. When you throw in placement, they tend to drop more
Hmm.
than people maybe that are shooting more difficult matches and placing well at them. Not, I mean, Keith Baker shot a ton of matches, but you go to probably
He shoots everywhere, all of them.
third,
Yeah.
third place at our match is Steve Felt. Well, Steve shoots some tougher
Yeah.
matches. And he finishes
Yep.
well at enough of them, he gains a ton of ranks. And
Yep. Or a guy like Joe Thielen that,
Yep.
I mean, he flat out said to me, he's like, I don't want to shoot easy matches. I'm going to go to Clay's match. I'm going to go to Hornet PRC.
Yep.
I'm going to go to THS. I'm going to shoot the ones that are tough. Yeah. He likes a challenge.
Yep. And
he usually finishes top 20 at those matches, right?
Now he's handicapping himself with the 308, and
he's still doing well. Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
But that's the next layer. You highlighted it.
Yeah.
So we look at the delta movers, the people with the biggest change in movement, and then we look at what matches did they shoot to make them move so much, and then you see the trends, and then that information comes back to the scoring, the differences in the scoring system.
Yeah,
the changes, what they're doing to the shooters makes sense to the season standings, and that hybrid scoring system really does that.
Right.
The other component, you touched on it with the 300-point shooters, more of them, more high scoring, 298 plus shooters. Well, there's more matches.
There's 49 matches this year.
And the more matches you have, if it was a 10-match season, we're probably only going to take the top 2 scores. If it's a 100-match season, maybe we'd think about taking the top 5. Well, part of the growth of the sport is just trying to keep up with, make sure the scoring system keeps up with the growth of the sport. So then you got to consider, okay, do we take the top 4 scores? We happy with the shooter's top 3, or if we add that 4th score in there, well, that really separates that top group much further.
Right.
And on top of that, maybe that drives a little growth within the PRS.
It could. Yeah. I mean, it could encourage folks to shoot more. We have to consider, so as a business, right? How many weeks of vacation do most of our shooters have, right? You're an engineer. I was an engineer before taking on a PRS, and how many weekends can I afford away, right? And, having 2, 3, 4 weeks of vacation, it may be 3 good weekends. That 4th one may be a stretch now, right? So that might be a source where, I need to go out and get some more information, or we do a poll hey, if we go to a 4-match season, are you still in? Yep. I mean, it's just, it seems like every time we turn a corner or have an idea and it's well, this would do this, and that's the desired effect we want. Hold on. Right.
Yeah, that's exactly the question to ask when it comes to adding that 4th match in. Are you going to drive away people? So we looked at it, of course, and Sheldon's awesome data set. Within about 2 minutes, he can tell you, I think,
how many people shot that many matches, right?
Maybe it was 4 to 6 shooters. Maybe you qualified last year for the finale that shot only 3 matches. That's not a very high percentage of 200. It's 2% to 3, right? So the other aspect of it is, are people maybe not going to try if they know they have to get that 4th score? So maybe you lose people there, but maybe you gain matches where people now shoot that extra match, or you add the hybrid system in, or some other component, and then they maybe go shoot a match they wouldn't have otherwise, and that's the growth aspect to weigh, and that's where data again answers the question, and the match director committee gets to weigh into the different models presented, and decisions made.
And to go one further, that probably affects guys like yourself and me even a little bit more. For a guy in Texas, if he's got to shoot 4 matches, it doesn't matter. He's shooting 6 or 7 already, right? He starts in January. He's done shooting by June 15th. and he only drove 8 hours away.
or less.
I mean,
Probably.
or less. Yeah. Being in Wisconsin, we have several guys that go after the Pro Series. I say several, but probably 5 or 6, that really get after it. And they, our closest match is 6-7 hours away. It's probably your match. Yours are Indiana, and that's, we just, if you're talking 4 matches, like, oh boy, now I'm really traveling, like now it's 2 days of vacation for every match I want to shoot,
That's the question that's the hardest to answer. But it's
Right.
easy to make decisions off of data and look
Mhm.
and look at how that changes things. But you can't account for how the scoring system will look based off of people's reaction to the change.
Right.
It's easy to look back at data that's already happened. The season's over.
Yeah. And we have a ton of data.
Right.
That's the best part.
It goes back several years, and
Yeah.
we've looked at it that way. So, it's a really compelling topic. It's really compelling. In my opinion, it's one of the biggest things the PRS may address with the
Mhm.
rule changes, or so it's the biggest chance to make a difference, and hopefully in the right direction.
I agree with it. The rule set is pretty strong, I'll say, right? There's not a lot of gaps in our rules right now. They really need to be addressed. So we're fine tuning those things, right? And sure, things could be worded better and all of that, but I think it's, for the most part, it's a pretty strong rule set. But yeah, when we start talking, addressing shooter scores for 1,000 pro shooters, we could screw it up, or we could make a really positive impact, right?
Yep.
And I'm leaning towards really positive impact. And if we try something and it doesn't work, like, I don't call that a failure. I mean, failure is not doing something about it, right? Our failure is ignoring it and saying that's not an issue. And that's one of the things that we did address in this committee. Like, with the current scoring system, we went from 10 or 12 matches a year in 2012, to 50 Pro Series matches this year, with another 1,000 rimfire and regional matches. Like, the organization has grown tremendously in the 10 to 15 years we've been doing this, and the scoring system has been effective throughout that. We did try, I think, in 2017, 16, it was before points made a difference in my shooting career. I was just showing up at matches to waste ammo, essentially. But there was tried to go placement only, and that was tried for a year, and we turned away from it. The organization turned back and went back to the way the points are currently done. But if we decide to make a change, if we got to tweak it the next year, or we revert, like, it's okay. Like, this isn't the end of the world, and we're not too inflexible to say, like, hey, we tried something, we made a mistake, or we almost got it right, we're going to tweak it, now it's going to be even righter.
There's really, I mean, you brought up 2 more components of the discussion right there. Is one, do we blow this change all the way through to the rimfire, the regional, everything?
Could be, yeah.
Do we leave those alone? You see like the major leagues try things out in spring training and stuff like that. You have those options, try things there. You got the divisions to deal with. How do you sort out placement? Anything with placements, any hybrid system, how do you sort out the 3 tack shooters that are there to make sure that score isn't wonky?
You don't want to make the divisional shooters, because really we're talking about open points, and open making the finale, open going for the top 10 bullets, golden bullet, etc., right? But we have production, tack, sportsman, gas gun. Like, we have 4 other divisions. That does this just apply to them?
Right. We haven't quite sorted through all of those layers yet, but I think the next big one on the agenda is the finale. What is it worth? Is it still worth 2x a regular match? Is it worth 2.5, 3, 1? Where is it? Because the more separation that you create in the field, the more
Right.
defined the winners are going to be. So if you want to leave it open to 20 or 30 shooters to have a chance, then, it's got to be weighted high. Well,
Right.
now it's a winner take all. So balancing that's is another, I guess, piece that we're trying to do. We're getting close, but
Yeah.
we got a few months yet.
Yeah. So let's just talk real quickly here. Next couple steps, right? Like come up with a couple models, right?
Yeah, we have good working models for the system, the couple of systems that kind of stand out. So that part's easy. Once, and for the most part, the group's in pretty good alignment with what. I mean, there's truly one method right now that's standing head and shoulders above the rest. Once we get that sorted out, we really need to have a minimum of two options to vote.
Contrast a little. Yeah.
And then it comes down to defining defining what does the scoring system do? How does it actually change? Because everybody's going to have the preconceived notion that, if we bring in placement, I'm not going to be able to make it because of this or that. Well,
or the flip side, you're going to have a lot of guys that will be like, I know exactly how to game this.
Yep.
I'm going to go shoot X, Y, Z and make the finale.
So with those models, we've got to come up with the right material to market, to showcase,
present it.
What's happening there. And that's a key step for probably a different group or smaller portion of the group, maybe even, back to the PRS. We haven't got that far, but the delivery of that message is pretty critical
Yeah. I think we'll have, around that point, we're going to have a presentation that we give to the match director committee. Obviously, we got to come up with like an executive summary and say, like, yeah, here's the things that we considered and here's the outcomes, et cetera. You need to vote. But with that, probably an hour and a half long meeting, everybody hold your comments. Let's get through the presentation. Now debate for a little bit and then we vote, right?
Yeah.
And, take it to vote. And that's going to be, fun.
It's interesting. and you have to recognize that not everyone will leave in that meeting is going to be happy.
No, you can't. Oh man.
Got to make sure they're not, no one's too disgruntled and, try to smooth things over in such a way or compromise or at least hear them out. Why? I mean, that's something at a minimum to do, but that'll be the next journey, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah. So over the next few months, hopefully we get something to show for this effort, and we take it to committee, figure out step forward, and for the 2026 season, maybe we're trying something new here. So that's exciting.
That'd be awesome. I think there's a lot of people. I think there's way more people that'll appreciate that than won't. And I think another meeting, and I'm not a huge fan of meetings, so try to get as much done as we can. Another meeting will probably be getting pretty close to the point where we need to pull together the match director material. So what do we need to present them and get this thing down the road, get some in-season feedback. Awesome. We're not that far away.
Right. That's awesome. Man, I super appreciate the time and effort you're putting into this and the passion you have for it. I super appreciate the team that's pulled together and their efforts. We all have a lot of stuff going on in life, on top of working and trying to compete and all of that. And I know that time is the most precious thing we have. And I super appreciate the passion you and the team are bringing to this and donating your time to try to figure this situation out. So, I guess for everybody else, stay tuned for, over the next few months. If you have a brilliant idea, drop it in the comment here on YouTube or Spotify. We will have a post that goes with this, on Facebook and Instagram and all that. If you want to leave comments there, that's fine. We'll see all that. And maybe there's something brilliant we're not considering, but my guess is, because I've heard the same thing from a lot of folks, like, oh, you need to do X. I'm like, I've heard that before. We're looking at it like Matt's considering it. So
yeah,
but
and really, the team, I'll speak for the team.
sure.
I think everybody there is like-minded in the sense they want to make the sport that they love, the thing they like to do on the weekends, during the week, and the evenings. The lucky people that can do it in the mornings and during the day, they want to make it better. How do we make it better? How do we get the right people taking home bullets? How do we get the right people at the event? And how do we get new shooters in the mix? So it's not hard to, you don't have to twist anyone's arm, I guess, to get in to participate.
Yeah. Well, I super appreciate you guys. With that, I mean, Matt, you have any final comments for the podcast here?
I really don't. I mean, it's a pleasure to, I guess, speak on it, and hopefully, hopefully we get some good feedback and do something good.
Right on, man. Right on, man. Well, I appreciate you. Thank you. That wraps up this episode, and look forward to talking about this again in the future. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you.